Yo guys, ever since Manticore, or rather the shifter, came into the game, there's a new, very overpowered dip that you can do. Well, you probably already guessed it, it's the Manticore. And you only need one single level in Manticore to pull it off. So far on unfair difficulty, you always kind of had to go which of the rail dip, which first of all it requires 2 levels to dip, and second of all it just gets very boring. Now you definitely could play unfair without Witch of the Veil, but personally I always didn't really like it. So as you can see in the background, we're playing an Oracle, or rather I'm starting with a Sorcerer to unlock a Leopard pet. So at any time in the video, if my talking doesn't fit what's shown, this is a... I recorded this first and then cut some stuff out, and now I'm just dubbing it, I guess. Now I'm just talking to it. So if anything goes too fast, just pause the video and look at it. I don't know how long this is going to stay in the game. It might get fixed. But is what it is. So making sure here, this is not really, has nothing to do with the video itself, but if you follow the steps that I'm doing right now, so you only share XP with companions.
Damn it all. Well, I'm seelah. I don't even want to. Yeah, things are looking grim enough, but.
Okay, so you only share XP with the companions that are active right now, but as you can see, right before accepting a companion into the party, right before ending the dialogue,
there are 3 of us.
Share with all companions, and now the XP is just transferred over, then change back, only active companions. And we have to repeat that for every single companion. If you want them to be even level, technically it's not necessary, but personally I like to kill as little stuff as possible in the shield maze, so it helps. So this all can be done with all kinds of different classes, and as I already said, I don't know how long it will stay in the game, but back when I made the Overpowered early in Kingmaker video, that video is still popular till today, because guess what, it still works. Heart of Ira cheese, the passing over the fog and stuff like that. Back then I had no idea whether it's still possible, and guess what, years later it's still possible. So the first couple fights are really easy, because Anavia, technically, if you don't have a pet, then she can just tank, and she does a buttload of damage because she isn't the same level, or she doesn't have the same stats as level 1 or 2 main character or companions have. So I'm choosing to use the Leopard here because it just speeds up stuff a little bit, and honestly I could have also just used seelah and camellia as well. It just was a little bit lazy and it seemed easier. So yeah, first couple of fights really easy, up until the village, the lizardfolk village, because then Navia will leave. And if the pet gets injured, Camellia can just heal it, or here the pet even gets hit by a disease, but a disease doesn't actually give you negative effects until rest, and the way pets work, when you rest everything gets healed. Like if they're dead, they get healed to full. If they're level drained, it just gets healed. It's like they're playing on easy difficulty, so this doesn't really matter as long as we heal pet back up. Once again, we don't even need to tank with the pet. And Navia could do the tanking. She does get knocked down if you let her get too low, but she will just get back up. Yeah, overall this just seemed a little bit faster, I guess. Sorry if I sometimes jump from one topic to the next, but once again I pre-recorded this video, so okay, so what we're covering in this video, I could have made a much shorter video, or in fact I actually did make a very short video about this back when Manticore released. Basically what we're just doing is we're using the midnight board that you find in the marketplace. So you can get it if you play solo and you maximize your solo XP, you can get it with like level 4. And obviously if you were not sharing your XP, then you would even be lower level when you get it. And it's the most ridiculous thing ever. If you have 2 base attacks, then, which you do get just by picking 1 level Manticore, then you will shoot 2 midnight bolts per round, which will not what's the word? They'll not go empty. I'm sorry, my English is bad. They will not use up. So you have infinite midnight bolts and you're shooting 2 per round. And then if you just have a single shifter dip, obviously if you have more Manticore levels, you could shoot like up to 11 times or something silly, but if you just have a single level dip, which is what we're gonna do in this video, and you want more than the 2 base attacks, which is also what we're gonna do, you just have to pick rapid shot and you'll have 3 midnight bolts per round. And then in Minagho fight, since you get hasted for the entirety of Grey Garrison, you have 4 attacks for Grey Garrison, but then once you reach Minagho, you'll get the mythic or mystic buff, whatever it's called, as well. And you will actually have 6 midnight bolts per round, and guess what? That just kills her in 1 round. So even against Minagho, this is as good as having an insta-kill spell. But you don't need to pick a class that gets an insta-kill spell, which means you can just dip very heavily. Like, a lot of casters could just insta-kill her because only on 20 can she save. But because of the mythic buff. But with this method, it kind of doesn't matter what class you play. The reason I upload a longer video now is A, there have been several patches and this has not been fixed yet. And B, I wanted to share a little bit of my run through of Shield Maze. I already uploaded a very short video the other day, but I wanted to make one where I show a bit more of my choices. So once again, if I talk and something that's happening in the back of the screen that doesn't fit, and you want to see what choices I pick while leveling or whatever, just pause the video. And I am very sorry if I'm rambling. I haven't made a video in quite some time, and it kind of doesn't help that this is pre-recorded, but it's easier for me because I can edit down the video a little bit. As you can see, I don't show every little bit of running around and whatnot. I was able to remove 1 hour of bloat from this run that way, which hopefully should make it easier to watch it as well. So yeah, I was looking at Reddit and also at other content creators, like Baldur's Gate 2 does a lot of unfair solo runs. I was just trying to find something that fits me personally more for unfair difficulty Shield Maze. Because so far, if I don't pick Witch of the Whale, then it always felt very underwhelming. Here we're doing the thing with the XP again, turn the shared XP off before accepting Lann and Wenduak, and that way they just get leveled to the same level, and just don't forget to change it to shared XP again after, so the XP we receive will be higher as if it was shared with like every single companion in the game that we don't even have right now. So yeah, sorry, I changed what I was saying abruptly again. It's kind of hard sometimes to keep up with what's happening on screen. So as I was saying, I was looking through all kinds of strategies for a shield maze, and most of them seem to involve at least one or two leopard pets. So I was trying to find a party composition that I personally like, and I really did not like the two leopard setups too much, because like a lot of people were using Lann or Venduak for a pet, and I personally don't like not having a ranged vital striker, ranged rowdy, because very often you just start a fight and your rowdy will one-shot one enemy before the fighting even starts from stealth. So right now this is pretty easy because we're playing Oracle. Like as you saw, we started as a sorcerer, but then I was just a single level dip. And this is not as useless as it might sound. Like yes, we only get some very low level sorcerer spells and the pet, which, you know, if you go Oracle you still get a pet, but it's not a leopard. It might sound really minor to do this just for the pet and just for the mage armor spell, but you also get to use all scrolls in the game without a UMD check. Not really a big deal because you have high charisma with an oracle and can push UMD really high. But you know, all things combined, I think it's mainly the leopard that justifies this dip, but it's not just the leopard that you get out of it. So the main thing that I learned from a couple of test runs is that I really like making either a seelah, a melee rowdy, or, you know, if we were not gonna play this with an oracle, if you don't want to follow along exactly what I'm doing, if you want your own kind of main character, there's two other choices. What you could do is either if you have a main character that doesn't mind a rowdy dip, and if it was a dex-based main character, you could just give Lann a pet, and your main character would get one rowdy level and would be the character that opens combat. And also the other way around, you know, you could make, if you want to make a strength-based character, then you could just give Seelah a pet, which is what I used to do. I used to give her a pet, but in this specific case, since on one hand our main character does have a lot of strengths, because eventually we're gonna go strength-based, currently I find her, in the early game, I find her a little bit more expendable if something goes wrong, I guess. She's not really expendable. Like, if you do this on a no reload run, then yeah, if she does happen to die, the run is pretty much over, but I guess it's not the same as with a main character where the game just ends. But her damage is very important, or the melee vital striker, having a melee vital striker is very important, because once combat started and the leopard pet has engaged the melees, you will not have the feats for removing the shooting into combat penalty. So on unfair it will be very hard to hit with ranged once the melees have engaged, or once at least the pet has engaged. So that's why I find this strategy. It's probably for most people it's nothing new, but for me personally I've always tried with ranged rowdies. So this is over the last couple days, like I've done 4 runs I think in total of the shield maze, and a little bit further than that until Minagho. And I just found a melee rowdy so much better. So one buff that I will just have on the pet all the time will be obviously mage armor, but usually I didn't do it here in the beginning, but in the second part of the shield maze, usually I try to have mage armor just on everyone that doesn't wear heavy armor. The only person I left the heavy armor on is Seelah because her dex isn't really that great. But if you have to rest in the shield maze, your stealth score will also help not getting ambushed while resting. So Camellia, which has a decent dex, I think she has like 19 or at least 17, 18 something. She has a decent dex, so having armor on her just gives her too much penalty. So yeah, eventually it will be like mage armor will be on all the unarmored characters all the time. Because with a charisma based caster you get plenty of casts of mage armor. And protective luck is something that you have to precast when combat starts, or like right before combat. Pause the game, cast it on your pet, and then immediately initiate combat. So the pet has it on it in case it gets flat-footed. And what else? Oh yeah, and for bigger fights, you will see it a little bit, I will show the buffing as well, but for bigger fights also, Camellia will cast Enlarged Person on Seelah, and main character will also cast Shield of Face on Seelah and the pet, because they're the ones that are gonna get hit most of the time. Oh yeah, and here in Shield Maze, there's a check that if you follow the same skill points that I did at the beginning, then main character, if it's charisma based, will have the highest diplomacy score. So here it's important to put only skill user receives experience, because then main character will get a little bit ahead, which is nice for the pet. The pet will be level 3 1 or 2 fights before everyone else, which is a nice boost in AC. It's like 2 AC or maybe even more, and nice boost in HP as well. And here it's important to keep the Masterwork Light Crossbow and the Greatsword. The Greatsword is for Seelah. The crossbow is not that big of a deal. I gave it to Camellia, but she ended up always casting Protective Leg, so that's the thing. You can also buy a Scroll of Heroism here. I don't think there's anything else super great in the shop. Oh yeah, and important to, before resting, to make sure that all spells are what you want them to be. I think putting Cure Light Wounds on Camellia, it's her default stuff that she gets in the first part. Putting it on her is technically not ideal. You could probably put something else that the main character doesn't have to cast. But it worked out, so why not? Yeah, once again, important to put the Protective Luck before the combat actually starts, because the pet often will be flat-footed. I did give the pet the Toughness feat, but honestly, in hindsight, I feel like maybe Improved Initiative is better than getting 3 HP.
I'll cut you wide open.
Like, both ideas, Toughness or Improved Initiative, would actually be for tankiness, because Improved Initiative just would mean getting flat-footed less often. But personally, I don't know what's better. I went with Toughness, but I think Improved Initiative might be better, or at least as good. Whereas a flat-footed AC is just so much lower. Also, something else I have not covered yet is I am using a little trick. Most people would probably call it cheesy because it is cheesy. Is if you are in turn-based mode and it's your turn with a character to attack or do whatever action, and you press T to exit the turn-based mode, and you press T again to immediately enter it, the enemy will be flat-footed again, even though they already acted. So you can get sneak attacks, even if you wouldn't otherwise qualify for it. And you can get a way better attack roll against the enemies, even though you're unfair, because their flat-foot AC, of course, is also much, much lower than the enemies. So you can see I do it with seelah. I press T and then T again. You're just luring the little flies to get a little bit of extra XP. Something you can only do with lann, that's why I always take him. It's not a big deal, it's not that much XP, but you know, every little bit helps. And the mongrels help you. So yeah, this is a bigger fight again, so I'm showing the whole buffing progress here just to show what I do for the less, or for the more dangerous fights rather. Just the short duration spells on top of the mage armor.
Time's not waiting.
I heed the voice of the spirits.
So magic weapon is one thing that will be super useless later in game. So here is where it probably would have been smarter to give that to Camellia. Like, don't memorize to cure light wounds, because main character being an oracle gets those for free anyway. So technically it would have been better that Camellia memorizes 2 times magic weapon for lann and for seelah. Which it doesn't do anything for the pet, by the way, they need magic fang. And then give a different level 1 sorcerer spell to the main character. But it doesn't make a big difference because you only have 1 single sorcerer level, so duration spells won't last super long. Like, yeah, you could get something like Expeditious Retreat or whatever, but it's not the biggest deal, I think. At the end of the day, this isn't a build guide on how to build an oracle, because a lot of people will probably disagree with some of the choices I'm gonna make. It's just my personal preference how I'm doing it. I've actually never played an Oracle before this, believe it or not. I know it's the best class in the game, but yeah, just never played one. But this is all just about showing off the whole how to bum rush the midnight board, how to get there quickly. Also, I made a mistake in this fight with targeting the enemies. I really should have targeted the two magic missile guys because they're the only ones that can kill the pet. Because the pet has really high AC. So yeah, with Lann and with Seelah, I mean with everyone except with the Leopard, should just target the magic missile guys because they have very low HP, so I will die quite quickly. But it's fine since you can just heal in combat. Usually, I mean, I can't heal right now. I had some weird thing going on where I couldn't unequip potions, which I only had at this part in the run and I've never had before, and I didn't have it after, so it was really weird. But yeah, usually you can totally change your consumables in the middle of a fight. It's not a locked slot. It's also important if you have to rest to make sure that whoever has the highest score is actually assigned to the roles, because the game auto assigns some random stuff. I think what the game probably auto assigns is whatever were the highest stats when you accepted everyone into the party before leveling them. Would be my assumption. It's important to check whether, especially the stealth check, is assigned to the person with highest stealth. Which at the start I didn't level stealth with the main character because they don't have high dex. But since they have it as, since mine has it as a class skill, at least at the point where I give it the last level, the monk tip, at level 3, then I assign points to stealth. Just first of all, after we leave the tutorial, the shield maze, we will be on our own because we're gonna solo. So we're gonna need some stealth, but also for the easier resting in the shield maze. We do get ambushed once, which I also included in the video, of course. I actually managed to do it without reloading, which might have been slightly lucky, but who knows. It worked anyway. Yeah, pet already pretty tanky with 29 AC. I think towards the end, level 3 is a pretty big upgrade because you get dodge and also you get to put a 3rd rank in mobility for fighting defensively. So just that is plus 2 AC, but also I think you get another AC bonus from leveling up the pet. And also Camellia gets Buckskin, which technically she doesn't need Buckskin because there's also Potion of Buckskin right before the final boss fight. But I'm a little harder. If I can get something on a character, then I'm not going to use the consumable. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that you will have 37 AC in the Hosilla fight and you only need 36. And on top of that, you have protective lag. This I personally consider the hardest. Oh no, not this one, the next fight. The fight with the hand of Hosilla and the ranger. That fight I personally consider the hardest fight in before level 3 or before the boss fight. And I don't think I even took damage in this run. And once again I didn't reload. Because there was no need to, but you know, it might have been RNG. Well, I mean, it definitely was RNG because the enemies could have crit even through protective lag. But you know, it's kind of rare that that happens. Because they already have to reroll their crits. So yeah, once again showing the slightly more buffs we're putting on before the harder fights. I'm very, very slow with buffing. I'm sorry about that. I still wanted, I could have cut it out as well, but I still wanted to show it just in case.
Ready for anything. This will hurt. I'm all ears.
You are today's sacrifice!
And yeah, because Seelah's movement speed is so slow with armor, so you can't really charge in, which is really annoying. But I tried out one run, the only single one run out of 4 where I failed doing it without reloading on unfair is where I took off her armor and put mage armor on her instead. Because she just doesn't have that high of dex. And usually I try to micromanage the fights that she doesn't get hit. And I think this run she just never got hit, if I remember correctly. So yeah, technically it could have worked without heavy armor. Because she's missing a lot of damage at the start of the fight because she takes so long getting in there. But at the same time, if she runs in faster, there's also higher danger that she gets targeted by the ranged enemies. And this way, if the Leopard just charges in and she slowly crawls her way back up, everyone is just on the Leopard, no matter what you do. Unless it goes down, then they switch targets. And because of the little trick with the pressing turn-based twice to exit and re-enter, if you don't think it's too cheesy to do it, personally I think unfair stats on the enemy, unfair difficulty stats are just, well, unfair, so personally I don't mind cheesing with stuff like this. Because you're always getting flat-foot, free flat-foot that way on the enemies. Personally, I think it's fine. If she's slow, if Seelah's slow, and doesn't get the immediate damage off. That's what we have lann for, if there's a soft target, like you saw here. We got lucky and the first melee enemy just died before the fight even started.
Endure this.
And then of course try to target ranged enemies with lann during these kind of longer fights where you're hitting a melee for longer, because he will have shooting into combat penalty against the melees and he won't have it against the ranged guys.
No glory without risk.
Yeah, personally, I do expect the whole thing that I'm showing off here in the video, once we get to Marketplace and Midnight Board with Manticore, I definitely do expect it to get fixed, because like Manticore hasn't been around that long. I don't know how aware Owlcat is of the bug. I would assume some people have reported it already, but they're also doing Rogue Trader right now, so I would assume once a new DLC comes out, I think they did announce it already, once it comes out there might be a big balance patch where it does get fixed. Once again, I still have to put out these kind of videos, because the last time in Kingmaker I made an Overpowered early video, I totally expected the Heart of Ira stuff to get fixed, and it never did. It still works now so many years later. But if this does get fixed, and if they remove the Midnight Board Manticore trees, I think this video is still worth keeping up because of... Oh, sorry, 1 second. Sorry about that. If they do fix this, I think this is still a nice way of seeing how to do the shield maze without Witch of the Whale, because personally I'm kind of sick and tired of Witch of the Whale. But also, even if you want to play Witch of the Whale, because at the end of the day it's the easiest way through the game solo on Unfair, then I think could still be interesting how to somehow fluidly do the shield maze, because what I personally did when I mean, not everyone else did it, maybe I was the only one, but what I personally did was mainly fight with the witch with like invis, attack, go out of invis, and I wasn't really very efficient with my companions. I sometimes even got them killed early and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm probably gonna leave it up even if this gets fixed. Just make sure to look at the date in the video description, and if the video is really old already. I mean, I will probably, if this gets fixed, I'll probably just pin a comment that it got fixed. So also make sure to look at the comments. But once again, Owlcat is pretty deep into Rogue Trader right now, and maybe they will never fix this, but also, once again, I'd like to say once again, when the next DLC for Wrath of the Righteous comes out, they might just fix it, which will happen pretty soon because they did announce it already. So we'll see. Before this fight, I was a little bit cocky and did not rest. So pretty much only have mage armor on everyone. Even though this fight has a little bit more enemies. And also I made the same mistake as in the earlier fight where there's a wizard with magic missile, and with lann I didn't target the wizard, even though I really should have. Because the wizard does unavoidable damage to a pet. Well, everyone else has a lot of problems hitting the pad. And if you rush in the pad like this with charge, as you can see by the positioning of the enemies, they all just target the pad. So, no real point in targeting the sharpshooter like I did. It has more HP, it has more AC compared to the wizards. It's just so much easier to one-shot the wizard, and it's just so much more relevant to one-shot the wizard because of the magic missiles. But since there's only one wizard here, they did not get to kill the pet. But you know, what could have happened is he damages the pet enough that someone else gets a lucky crit in there, and even if the crit doesn't get confirmed, then still, because the pet is low from the magic missile, that's why we still die to a normal hit. I think it speaks for the strategy that you can still make some mistakes and still do the entire unfair shield maze with no reloads.
You won't survive me.
The Inheritor, guide my blade.
By the way, since I'm not really tanking with the main character, probably didn't need to dip monk this early. Could have gone another oracle level here. The idea is to change my alignment to lawful good, because you have to start out with neutral because of the shifter, because at level 4 we're gonna grab a Manticore level, but it takes a while to change alignment to lawful good, and also even so, if we do go lawful good, that doesn't disable monk. Monk just needs lawful, so no need to go monk here, but a little bit of safety, I guess. Also, I didn't go rapid shot here, but at level 4 when we grab the midnight bolt, we cannot immediately grab rapid shot because it's an even level. But there's so much XP on the marketplace that you can just get for free, like there's the Ramian quest and talking to tieflings that will help you with Grey Garrison. Just those two things without any fighting will level you to level 5, so I thought it's better to grab stealth here, because sometimes stealth does help you to not get ambushed on your way to the market. It didn't work for me in this run. I got ambushed and my stealth was just too low because it's not a dex-based character. Our stealth does get a little bit better later in the game when we grab the shapeshifter mythic ability. That lets you stay, or that gives you a bonus to your stats. It gives you a bonus to strength and dex while you're shapeshifted, and since we're Kitsuna, where you can just permanently be in human form, get +4 dex, +4 strength. I mainly did it for the strength because we start out with 14 strengths, so with the +4 from the Kitsuna we're at 18. And we also start out with 20 charisma, and I tried the Azima that gives you strength and charisma, and you will actually, if you want to have 18 strength and 10 in your, like, in the stats that you're not pumping, wouldn't call it dumb because 10 is still okay, then you will end up with only 19 charisma and 18 strength, and just overall the whole stat allocation will be a little bit more awkward. And also, I'm not 100% sure what direction I will go with this character. I might actually end up going with charge, so Kitsune is just really useful for that as well, because you get the Kitsune charge, the Vulpine Pounce, I mean. So it's a little bit weaker in the early game before you get to the mythic feats, but since in the early game that's what the whole video is about, we're going to be abusing the Manticore dip with the Midnight Bolt. I don't really need any strength for that anyway. It's a little bit more carry weight, but since we have a pet, that just adds its carry weight to our character. Not too necessary. So I think for endgame, Kitsune is just a little bit more min-max. So this fight is a little bit annoying because they changed it recently, so all these dredge now cast a Stinking Cloud at the start. And Camellia is really close to level 3, so technically we would run around and just try and kill some small mongrels or whatever to get to level 3, or maybe even the water elemental. But especially the water elemental, personally, I don't think is worth wasting time over. With this, if you don't have a Witch of the Whale, with this party setup, you'd have to kite it around the table or some bullshit like that. And for me personally, it just takes too long and it's too annoying to do. And I've never had to reload on this fight. The one time when I did have to reload out of 4 runs was in that fight with all the ranged guys, the clerics, right outside of this area. I was the only time where once Seelah died, like actually got Great Portrait permadeath, which if I was playing a permadeath run, that's a Slanty or whatever, then I probably would have just used one of the trend left skills on her and it would have been fine. But to me personally, it was kind of a failed run because all the fights are so easy if you don't make silly mistakes that I personally found dying unacceptable. And yeah, despite the really annoying Stinking Cloud here, I just never died in this fight, so I think that's doable even without Camellia being level 3 and having the anti-poison spell would just make you immune to Stinking Cloud. Yeah, I made both Lann and Seelah into a VV at the 3rd level, just for a little bit extra stat boost. A little extra damage, a little bit extra AB. Because I'm not using the companion, so I might as well mess them up royally, just so they're good for the shield maze. You know, I don't think these dips are terrible even if you keep the companions. The Rowdy and the VV. Oh yeah, and I totally should have picked Law Religion earlier with seelah, because there's quite a few Law Religion checks during a Shield Maze that I all failed, because I hit it at 0. But there's like one more check, so I decided to just pick it because why not. Also, I decided against Toughness because accomplished sneak attacker. The description of that skill is a little bit weird, or of that feat rather, but I do remember looking at the tooltip for it like ages ago, just to confirm that there's actually add damage, and as far as I can tell, even if you heavily dip, you still get damage out of it. And yeah, also because of this potion of Barkskin, technically it's not that important to go 3-level Shaman on Camellia. You could also dip something into her, be it Rowdy or be it a second pet or whatever. But the thing is, it would be smarter to do that on level 2. But if you do it on level 2, then you won't have Protective Luck for the entire Shield Maze, so I don't know. I would prefer not to dip on her. Technically, it would probably, if you want to dip on her, it would probably be smartest to do it here at level 3 and then put like Rowdy level, because the second pet isn't really... You can't constantly keep up Protective Luck on 2 different characters, so it's not gonna be a good tank. You could put like an aggressor pet for a little bit of damage, but... Oh yeah, and now that we finally have maxed stealth for resting, technically have the lowest chances. I think like 15% chance to get ambushed. We finally get ambushed. So this is definitely very bad Angie if this happens. A, pet is gonna get flat-footed. B, it's not gonna have mage armor and he has buffs on it. My micro is probably a little bit poor here as well. I tried to run around with the pet until it's not flat-footed, but failed hilariously. And then of course there's a flat foot as well, so it's definitely gonna get hit, but as long as it doesn't get one-shot, and that's the one good thing about these natural attack enemies, that in the early game they don't really do a lot of damage. It's more like the diseases they give you are annoying and the ability drain. But since you're gonna rest after this anyway, and since even on unfair the pet just gets fully restored after resting, it really isn't a big deal. I'm not gonna say that you can't die during an unlucky ambush, but I think with level 3 it's definitely gonna be hard to die here. If this happens during a level 2 rest, then yes, maybe pet just gets crit and dies, but once it's not flat-footed anymore and it has Protective Luck on it, it's just impossible for the enemies to do anything.
Make every strike count.
help where I can.
Any more secrets?
Aparane sente.
Yeah, I got a really lucky crit in this fight. I already showed it off in the other video the other day. But surprisingly enough, Hosilla doesn't seem to have a lot of HP, so even if you don't get a crit, as long as someone else gets a hit in before, he usually dies in the first round. Like there, she took 6 damage before. I don't know if 6 would have been enough, but might have already died to seelah even without the crit.
Do not waver.
Either way, the pet has 37 AC at this point, so Hosilla has like 16 AB, I think, on unfair. But 36 would already be enough. And 37 definitely is. And protective luck for extra crit protection.
Cross the wrong month.
Oh yeah, this fight I kind of royally messed up. I mean, I usually always do this differently and send my melees to the right side, but I wanted to try out what happens if I try and quote-unquote burst the enemies that Arabes is fighting, because she just one-shots everything, so getting her into the fight faster would have helped, but yeah, this wasn't a good idea, as you can see, but luckily it doesn't matter. But yeah, if you want to do this right, then send the pet to the right side. The main reason I didn't do it is because there's also a magic missile guy here. And you, unless you get lucky with Lann's initiative, you can't really kill the evoker before they fire off the magic missile, because you kind of getting surprised by the combat start, you're not initiating it. Well, yeah, the moment the pet just tanks the melees, after that, I think 2 of my guys go down because one of the cultists is rushing in their YOLO. They don't usually do that if there's a tank in front of their face, but I guess that one already had someone targeted. I think it might even have been my main character. Oh, we'll see in a second, so yeah, there we go. Boom. So I think technically if you get crit here, maybe the game can just end, but once again, don't do what I did. Just immediately send the pet over there, maybe be ready to heal it. And this fight goes a lot differently. But hey, once again, even with mistakes, no reload needed. So the base strategy seems sound enough, and if you eliminate the mistakes, then it gets even better.
You won't survive me.
Into the fray!
So this is how it feels?
Yeah, since the dredge back there only aggroes when you get too close, I just decided to heal up my team, which, if you do it out of combat, then it's just faster and easier because you can do it via inventory. That's why I ended up just letting Kenabres run over there, and that way combat will end eventually, even if they keep fighting.
No glory without risk!
Yeah, I skipped the small fights where the NPCs are doing all the work because not really anything special I'm doing with my party. If somehow everyone would get knocked out here, you could just go in with the main character and let Kenabres do the rest. She just never loses here. Also, something I only noticed after I record it, that I never use Smite either with seelah. I didn't use it on Hosilla, I didn't use it on the hands of Hosilla, a little bit tanky. So, my bad. Now I skipped quite a lot, like all the running around in the tavern and whatnot, because I would assume most people would know what to do there, and it just eats up a lot of time. So I just skipped towards the random ambush I got here, because at the start our stealth score is really low because of a low dex. I keep leveling stealth and I will also probably get the stealthy feat. Haven't 100% decided yet. So eventually the chance of ambush will get lower and lower, and also once we get master shapeshifter, plus for dex from that permanently. But yeah, even if you run into an ambush that you can't do, like this one here for example, no pre-buffed pet and whatnot. Maybe if I made up my mind right at the start, maybe I could have buffed the pet and could have won the fight, but my initial response was to go away and invis, and then all of a sudden I was like, we can do this, and went back in, but at that point it was too late and I was too far away and the pet just got owned because flat-footed. So this is usually what you do in an ambush. That is a little bit too much for you. Just disengage and go in this. And pets just resurrect. So yeah, as you can see there, I realized the pet is already down. Turn-based is a nice cheesy way to get out of there. Out of AOO distance, go in this. Then you can just leave. You can very rarely get ambushed by Sheer or by alchemists, but you know, if that type of ambush happens, you know from the start that you have to invis and run. Just use your pet as a distraction and you'll be fine. Yeah, now just for the finish of the video, just showing what I already talked about, is to show what, even if your own character is completely useless like mine is right now, what the easiest way, or at least the way of least resistance is towards the midnight board. Trying to get towards lawful good at the start is pretty hard because all the lawful choices and good choices in the dialogue don't have a lot of impact. Like they only slightly change your alignment. This first fight, my goal is just that enough of the demons die that I can just get past them. I don't have to kill all of them. One of the Crusaders is immortal and keeps getting back up, so technically you could go in and out of combat until all the demons die, but it just takes too long. It's faster to just eventually run past them within this. So yeah, once that dredge dies, I just run past. I made a little bit of a mistake and sent my pet in. And it didn't really get anywhere because my pet is full tank and my own character doesn't do anything right now. So, don't need to kill the pet there. I was just being silly.
Let's try this way.
Yeah, technically can only hit with a crit, but hits very hard and has 3 attacks per round. And we don't have any damage. And I tried to heal, but was already too late. Both crits were not confirmed, or it would have one-shot. I mean, I think it straight up can't confirm the crit, because it doesn't have any extra critical confirmation rolls as far as I know. But still, 2 of those in short succession is enough. I also decided against showing how to get XP here on this map. Like, it's very easy to get 2 further levels without any fighting, but the point of the video is to show the Midnight Bolt, and after that you can just do whatever you want. Like, nothing is a challenge anymore, so might as well just make a normal pass and not rush to the no combat quest. Just do them on the side anyway and kill everything that gets in your way. And here we go with the Manticore dip, which does enable the cheese. And once again, this can be done on pretty much any class, pretty much any character. It's a 1 level dip, so compared to Witch of the Whale, that's where you need 2 levels. It's already taking away less of the power of your character in the end game. And there's no need to do this for like the entire game, the Midnight Bolt cheese, if you don't really like doing it. You can just do it until your character gets online, like an Oracle, for example. Once you start getting your angel spells, then you can pretty much stop doing this. But personally, I just like having an easy early game until my character comes online, I guess. Yeah, here we're manipulating turn-based a little bit to get out of a sticky situation. I was a little bit impatient. Usually all those enemies don't pile in as fast as that. And the Crusaders will kill all of them eventually. But I triggered them a little bit too quickly. There we go, there's the Midnight Bolt. I have to activate the Manticore claws or whatever they're called, the spikes first. And usually you're only allowed to use the Midnight Bolt with a crossbow, and usually it has a single use and it will expire. So this almost definitely will get fixed. But I thought the same about Heart of Ira and Kingmaker, and here we are years later and it still isn't fixed. On the way back, casually run by the guy that we just couldn't kill earlier.
Our victory is certain.
Casually shoot at him once, miss, and still kill him. Yes, that's why this is so OP. Misses kill. Go and rest, revive our pet. That's pretty much the end of the video already. I did one test run with this before, up until Minagho. At that point, if you're keeping the haste, if you're running through somewhat quickly through Grey Garrison to Minagho, that you keep the haste from the wizards that they give you at the start, then you will have 6 attacks if you picked Rapid Shot, which I highly recommend to pick at level 5, so right after this level. I have 3 attacks per round, 3 Midnight Bolts per round. During most of the games, there are 4 during the entirety of Grey Garrison, and 6 at Minagho because of the mythic buff, and you can just straight up kill her in the first round. It's ridiculous. And by that point, the pet will have like 48 AC without consumables, just with your Oracle buffs and the mage armor. I don't know why I didn't cut this out. Yeah, there's a little weird bug when if you revive the pet while resting, sometimes after that you can't move the pet around and will make these weird dancing moves or whatever that is. Really should have cut that out, but I somehow overlooked it. There we go again. Kill with misses because hey, we're a strength-based character. We're using a ranged weapon for no reason. No way this stays in the game, but it's really silly, and I guess enjoy it while it lasts.
This will hurt.
Alright guys, that's it from me. I probably will upload the whole run a little bit later. We'll see. Bye bye.